How fleshy is this film?
I think it was pretty fleshy in the way that when you go to a restaurant and they put on today's specials and it's like, oh, it's really great. It's some kind of like beef short rib. And then you get it and realize it was like yesterday's pot roast.
You can eat it. You can eat it. Welcome back to the Breakroom. Joker FOLIE A DEUX, the highly anticipated sequel to 2019's Joker, came out last weekend, and people are not happy with it.
Mixed reaction.
Come on, get happy. Get ready for your Judgment Day.
We're gonna build a mountain of cinema.
Is it gonna go on Paramount Mountain?
I don't know. No, I guess this goes on
The Warner Brothers
Mountain,
tower,
the tower.
and Yakko's just with a broomstick, like, get it off our roof, it stinks and it's dripping.
Hey, where are our cartoon friends? They sent them away, wacko.
Ooh, isn't one of them just Ringo?
It's more
Starr?
Ringo.
Yeah,
It's more
no, he sounds Ringo, yeah.
But I've got an octopus's garden.
There it is.
there
Australian Ringo is kind of what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So what went wrong with
What
Joker?
went wrong?
What went wrong? Of course, I'm Evan. Joining me today is Erik Voss.
Hi, everybody. Let's get serious and just talk the numbers and nothing else.
And Brandon Barrick.
Man, I couldn't wait for Harvey Dentz's face to eat ash, baby.
Ash to ash.
Smashed.
They needed like 10 gags of like someone throwing hot coffee and you hear screams and you pan over and it's the guy next to Harvey Dent who's been hit. And then maybe like, just like 4 almost Harvey Dents before the last one, I think.
You hear like an alligator like growl in the sewer, but it's actually just like Pennywise for some reason.
I was when they were first in Arkham and you're hearing noises and there's one room where they're just scuffling with the dude. I was like, it's gonna be the alligator guy, right?
No. Killer Croc is in a different movie.
An angry individual who probably needs mental health assistance.
Yeah.
But the system has failed everybody.
The system has failed
everybody. That's what we've learned from both of these Joker films.
Yeah.
That's what we've learned.
That's what we've learned.
So there's a lot of, mixed reactions about Joker FOLIE A DEUX. We're going to get through a lot of different stories about the film and kind of how it's being received. To help move through this conversation, we're going to try to answer the question, why did blank want to make this movie? And we'll fill in that blank as we go along.
Yeah.
But before we get into it, Brandon, you are fresh off a screening literally minutes ago about the film.
Yes.
How'd you feel about it?
It was interesting because obviously there was a lot of news this weekend about the movie, mixed reactions, mostly, I would say, mostly negative reactions, or even like, it was interesting, but I don't know. I will say, as a fan of movies, as a fan of musicals, as a fan of good movie musicals, this was not a good movie musical. And I wanted so much more out of the music from it that it left me lacking. I recently watched The Joker again, the full thing, and that's like a big vibes movie. It's weird kind of looking back at it now. That was pre-pandemic. A lot of things have changed in society even. But that movie had an interesting look at like the creation of this character. I don't know what they were going for with this one. And then the ending is interesting. Interesting, I would say. Should we warn everyone? We're going to spoil the movie?
Yeah, we'll probably get into spoilers. So
be careful. We won't get into it just yet, but like...
Yeah,
I will say overall, I was left wanting more from both sides of this movie, both the movie side and the musical side.
Yeah. Erik, you did the breakdown. How'd you feel about the movie?
I saw it like the Monday before it released, so it was before like a lot of the reviews came out. I think we had heard some like consternation from people who saw it at a film festival, but I didn't read into any of the leaks. And like I just thought like the movie had a lot of things going for it. Really an amazing cast. I think the 2019 movie was a film that I didn't particularly enjoy, but I appreciated its accomplishment nonetheless. And this movie, I think, was just the studio, all of Hollywood, learning all the wrong lessons from the year 2019. And I just feel like if it was trying to be a musical in the style of 2002's Chicago by Rob Marshall from the Bob Fosse musical, it felt afraid of trying to be a musical. If it was trying to be a DC movie, it clearly didn't understand the DC universe and was just really just using the IP as a mask in order to get this movie funded and made, as opposed to actually delving into the real themes of these characters as people know them and appreciate them. And I just feel like Todd Phillips is a talented director, but this is just not the project for him. And maybe the 2019 Joker was the project for him, but this as a musical featuring this relationship between Harley and Joaquin Phoenix, considering Joaquin Phoenix got an Oscar for his portrayal of Arthur Fleck, like that, I understand as like a character study, as a two-sided character study, and we don't really learn anything new about either of them. I just felt like this was a step backward from whatever he accomplished in the 2019 movie and undid a lot of what was good or what people liked about the 2019 film.
Yeah.
So I very much did not enjoy this movie. I found breaking it down to be a challenge and a slog, and I didn't like having to rewatch it and go through all my notes and just like think about the movie a lot. I just kept seeing dreams of better movies that could have existed here. And it didn't happen. I still don't understand why it's so low though. D, 30-something%. I'm kind of curious to hear you guys is like, what you think went wrong.
Yeah, I mean, already in the chat, there are some people in our live chat who are saying that they did like the movie. And I do think there are elements of it, one of the things that we talked about really just on a gut reaction is Joaquin Phoenix is still like really great in this movie. He's still, he commits very hard to his roles, for better, for worse, And also I think visually overall, it's really great. Just like cool to see the colors and cool to see like, how Todd Phillips wanted to use some of these musical aspects, maybe not achieving it in the best way all the time, but definitely able to take some swings with the visuals that really keep it, still in conversation with the first. It's kind of like these grimy, like, gritty settings of Gotham, and then compiled with the fantasy and the sheen that comes from being in these worlds. And I think, the playing with the colors is really great, and definitely one of my favorite parts of the first movie, and still of the second movie as well. And hey, shout out to Harry Lottie, the guy who played Harvey Dent.
Oh, yeah, really great.
So, I mean, Lady Gaga, also great. Brendan Gleeson, Catherine Keener, all, doing great stuff. But, like, I had never heard of him before. So smug as Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
He's always just...
You always got to... Pre-Two-Face Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
You always got to be a good smug asshole.
Buttoning the jacket, unbuttoning the jacket,
I mean,
sitting with the hand in pocket.
That's good button maneuvering.
Yeah.
He's a
Standing button before you said unbutton.
Yes, he had some great button business.
Button business.
Button biz. I think he
Button blocking.
is a young actor who said in interviews he didn't look at Aaron Eckhart or Tommy Lee Jones or any of the actors who had played Two-Face in a film before. Billy D. Williams. There's not any essence of Billy D. Williams in this performance, but I think it was to his benefit because I really got the sense of a young ADA, assistant district attorney, as opposed to Tommy Lee Jones, who was like a suave, like Southern lawyer who turns into Wile E. Coyote a little bit, or Yosemite Sam in that movie, and it's just like bizarre. He was like almost like a billionaire playboy is the way he played like the Harvey Dent side of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I agree with you. I think Harry Lottie was great. I thought everyone in the cast was great. It's just this movie conceptually just was trying to do too many different things and none of them well.
Yeah, and just like really interesting like pacing choices, and obviously just like creative choices as far as like, a spoiler is Arthur Fleck saying, "I am not the Joker," like treading too much on like the first movie is what it's trying to say about society and like, the symbol that he's become. I think it's really interesting, to get right into the ending of the movie. The fact that Arthur Fleck is killed by another, inmate who then...
They've been showing the whole movie, and you're like, what's this guy
kind of looks like Heath Ledger a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And he, off kind of blurry, he carves the scars into his face, and he's laughing, and, this is like the idea of the Joker is spreading, and blah, blah, blah. But to say that Arthur Fleck is not the Joker, when in the screenplay, it clearly said that he was the Joker, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, there's a great Hollywood Reporter article that just broke down everything that happened with this movie behind the scenes and the development of it and the funding of it. And what we were talking about this before we started rolling, that the Hollywood Reporter ran this story today after yesterday tweeting Francis Ford Coppola's support of Todd Phillips' movie and saying that he liked it, and they said, "Hang in there, Todd Phillips," in their tweet, the Hollywood Reporter, and got a bunch of shit for that because the Hollywood Reporter, when Nia DaCosta made The Marvels, another movie that was highly anticipated and underperformed, and a lot of people were complaining about the budgets decisions around that. They posted a lot of unfair things about Nia DaCosta, that she went to a friend's birthday party instead of going to one of the many crew screenings that she would have already seen the movie for. And so a lot of people were just saying, comparing apples to apples here and saying that this is unfair treatment of one type of director while completely defending Todd Phillips. So I think the Hollywood Reporter took that feedback in and today just went hard on him and hard on Warner Brothers. And they said that with that ending, I think this has been reported elsewhere, Christopher Nolan was asked, because the original version of this was going to be Arthur carving his own cheeks to give himself the Glasgow smile, and Christopher Nolan said no, like he nixed it, and he has so much muscle, even though he's not with Warner Brothers anymore. He's producing stuff independently with Universal, etc. They didn't want to piss off Christopher Nolan, so they took that out and they just gave that Glasgow smile to another character. Which I wonder how he feels about that, about like an implied successor Joker who was doing that.
This guy will become the real Joker of Gotham, I guess.
I
don't know. And I don't know the comics history of the Joker. He's been portrayed so many times in the comics. Was Heath Ledger's version the first one to have like a scar smile, or had that been done before?
There had been various art pieces. The Glasgow or the look of the Heath Ledger Joker was an amalgam of a lot of different things. There was the Man Who Laughs short film, or not short film, it was an old film to where he has a very wide set smile. I do not think that he is the first one on the pages of artwork to be depicted this way, but in a high-profile cinematic way, yes.
Sure.
And I believe even Barry Keoghan's Joker did
like
have
a
some
weird
scar.
mouth.
Like that.
Yeah, but we just didn't see him on screen. We just saw a deleted scene or set photos of it. So I don't have a problem with saying like it's just the nebulous ending and the implication that they wanted to do that. And I think in a movie that is otherwise trying to be so apart from the DC cinematic history, to kind of do this weird, vague wink to it just felt contrary to what these two movies' objectives have been.
I agree with that. And I'm also, with his kind of the ending of this movie and Arthur Fleck deciding in his closing statements to be like, I'm not the Joker. Like, that's not a thing. I'm tired of doing this, putting on this act. Like, I don't even get his motivation for that necessarily. I know his little buddy dies in prison, or we assume he's dead.
Ricky Meline, I think, was the name of the character.
When he starts singing and then he hears him get like kind of choked out, and it's like he's crying or he's sad. I think a tear falls as he's laying in bed listening to it. But it's like, is that the moment that he decides like, oh, this is too much?
Yeah, I actually thought I fell asleep and missed something. Right, I was like, oh, this feels really unearned at this moment.
Well, I think the way it's shot is just, again, very unclear because there's an implication that he was sexually assaulted. Right.
Yeah.
He's stripped down. He's in the showers. And he's dragged away, and he no longer has his pants on.
Yeah.
And I think he was sexually assaulted as a kid, the character of Arthur Fleck, and I think they call that back in that moment. I think the implication is that the prison guards did something. Yeah. And this is something that I started to pick up on when I rewatched the movie, that certain, not choices by Brendan Gleeson, but like characters of Jackie, the fact that he's I don't know, he's into the arts. Is that what they're saying? That the character has these kind of things?
Yeah.
I honestly, when I first watched that, didn't pick up on any of it. I took upon a rewatch, and I was like, oh, maybe that's what they're going for. But I think there's that night, and I think it can get a little dicey when you make those implications of like, what gave you a soul? You know, like that's pretty messed up. And when I started to think about that, it made me like the movie even less.
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
Because that whole kind of, I guess that the climax is maybe the explosion, and that's kind of all denouement after that. I don't know, or maybe the climax is when he meets Harley on the stairs, and she's like, I'm not really into you, dude. But like all of that just kind of, it felt a little weird, and it's almost like at this point I'd rather him just like go whole hog and be like, I'm the Joker, baby. Let's go, and then not like the results of his actions and regret it, but be like, it's too late now. Because that moment when he's kind of whisked into a car by his adoring fans, and he has to listen to them talk. He's like, I don't want to be with these assholes. Flipping off first responders? Oh, the Joker doesn't appreciate that, good sir. I don't think you read my manifesto. That all felt like very, I don't know, is that a note from Todd Phillips of like, hey, I don't like the crowd that liked my first movie? Because they basically insinuate that Arthur Fleck is an incel. Because you can kind of hear it as Zazie Beetz is wrapping up her testimony, that like she says that either his mother said, or she thinks that he's never been with a woman before. And I think it was kind of implied with the moment with Harley in solitary confinement, was that real? Was that real?
Ooh,
See, in my
that's
breakdown, I
tough.
speculated that was an imagined scenario.
Right?
Just because if she ever does have a baby bump in the movie, which would be way too early for her to
Yeah.
be showing, it's in the fantasy in the courtroom when like she hands him the gun and then he starts shooting the cameraman. It's in that scene and she leans back and there's kind of a bump there. But I don't think, even for someone who checked herself into Arkham, they would let her into a solitary confinement cell with a dangerous criminal who was on trial. It just like, it seemed like that. But the fact that this movie doesn't do a good enough job to make that clear. Like, I'm all for a David Fincher Fight Club twist where you're kind of like endlessly puzzling over what was real. Or in Nolan's Inception, you're kind of like, wait, what? Or in Shutter Island, they do the same thing. This just kind of felt like confusion as opposed to mystery.
Yeah.
And that was my issue with the 2019 movie. I think a lot of people were saying, like, it's like Fight Club. And I'm like, talk to Todd Phillips. He says that wasn't his intention. Yeah. We're just kind of like applying our own wants for this movie, I guess, in a weird meta way, the way the people of Gotham call Arthur Fleck the Joker and he doesn't consider himself the Joker.
Right.
I think there's just a lot of like loose ends in this movie that just seemed like it wasn't a confidently edited, confidently told story.
Yeah, yeah, just a lot of different, themes and things wanting to cover without having a confident stance on it.
But some moments were really confident. I don't want to discount Todd Phillips' abilities as a director. I think the lipstick on the glass was such a cool concept.
That's such a good shot, and they use it in the trailer.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these shots from the movie, you pop them in a trailer, and they're great. They're
not. I mean, we just watched the trailer, Mikayla and I, when we were setting up the stream, we put on the trailer, and I was like, it's great. It's great.
And also, I thought all of those hot moments in the trailer would be like fun, long musical dance sequences. Instead, most of those fun sequences were short, in his head, and just like Harley, and no one got to dance. Where's the backup? I want to see.
Arthur had his whole like Leo DiCaprio step dancing from Titanic.
All of the prisoners dancing. You know what I mean? I want to see the guards doing a little. I want to see the jurors swaying back and forth.
In Chicago, when they do Razzle Dazzle, you see everyone.
Baby. And this reminds me, I had to go see The Bodyguard the musical. Had to go see it. Forced to.
Okay.
A bizarre idea for a musical, yes. Essentially, it's a Whitney Houston jukebox musical. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
but in this musical, done on stage, only 3 characters sing. The Whitney Houston character, Whitney Houston's sister's character. Again, don't know the names of the characters. And Whitney Houston's son's character.
Wait, the Costner character doesn't sing?
The bodyguard never sings. The villain doesn't get a song. No one else gets to sing. And that's what this movie felt like. Brendan Gleeson starts to sing at one point. He's got great pipes.
He does. Yeah. He's got a good voice.
He wasn't in The Replacements, right? No, he's not.
No.
I don't think I've ever heard him sing. He's got great pipes. I thought he was going to get a fucking solo in this.
A true banshee of Inisherin.
Yeah. And it was like, you have only 2 singers. One of them, great. Mm-hmm. Stephanie Germanotti, let's watch her career. She's going to blow up.
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix can sing. I love Walk the Line. He's great in that movie. He does a great Johnny Cash. And I think sometimes he does pretty well. In this movie, some of his songs, but some of it I was like, again, I gotta listen to this fucker, kind of like, and I think sometimes he's purposely singing a little off because that's how Arthur Fleck would sing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, if you're gonna do a musical, just go for it. Have a little fun. Like the courtroom's musical moment was fun, and there could have been way more of that. I think the whole thing should have been framed around their variety show.
That's
like the whole movie should have just been framed around that. And like, how did we meet, Harley? And you just go back in time and you show all that stuff.
Pitch,
because that moment in where she pulls the gun during that and shoots him and it's like kind of serious. And it's like, that's fun. More of that. Yeah. It's like instead the movie is like 4 sets. You know, it's like Arkham, it's the courtroom, it's the car on the way to the courtroom and back. And like that's it, pretty much, right? There's maybe like one more area that we get to see.
How will we explain to our children that the Margot Robbie scene in Birds of Prey, where she's doing Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, it's not in this movie.
I know.
We have had multiple different like musical sequences with the Harley Quinn and kind of like Marilyn Monroe era. Right. There's no Marilyn Monroe in this movie, and I think it's just because they did Marilyn Monroe
so
in Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
Instead, they did like Gwen Verdon. They did Fred Astaire.
And even like the reveal that Harley is, not who she tells Arthur that she is. It happens way too early.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it's like,
happens
let that go
halfway.
further.
Oh yeah, that surprised me. I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
I was like, oh, that's fun. And then it's like, oh, there's nothing more to this.
See, I think that was the technical climax of the movie. That was around halfway in between. And then that's kind of what undoes him in the second half of the movie. And then probably the dramatic climax is the explosion. Yeah. And everything else is just denouement, final action.
Yeah. And
falling
back
action.
at the hospital, I'm just like, hey, Baba.
Yeah.
Hey, Baba.
I did really enjoy, though, that scene with Gary Puddles, Lee Gill coming back to reprise the role. I was telling a friend about that scene, and he was like, wow, you're kind of making me want to go see the movie. I was like, well, it's probably the best part of the movie. It is the
best scene of the movie.
Where he's talking to a character from the first film and how that character feels abandoned by Arthur in a certain sense because Arthur was the only one who was nice to him and now has like done all these terrible things.
And he's scared. He's scared all the time.
Yes, he's scared. Yes, exactly.
Kind of like, remember that these things don't go away for these people.
Exactly. And I thought that, taking that and then like setting this outside of it being a Joker film, right? I was like, this could have been a really interesting movie here. Like seeing this play out with these maybe musical segments that are but like so devoid of it being Joker or what have you, there was something really interesting in that scene that I thought could have been explored a little bit more.
I thought that scene was really well directed too. Like those moments of him in the courtroom dressed as Joker, where you see like his face on the camera, you know what I mean? And it's all very like 70s. That reminded me of like reading Watchmen or something. Like that feels like a panel where you have a judge being like, all right, I'll let you dress up like this, but you're not turning this into any more of a circus. And he's doing like a Southern voice. This is so silly and comic booky that like this part I enjoy. This is very fun. Like, would this city allow this guy to represent himself in court dressed as a clown and be like, and this is the first time cameras are ever in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Like that part was like fun and comic book weirdness. But I don't know. It just
doesn't work to the big tonal whiplash and visual whiplash between something so grounded and real with the way they're doing musicals in this, right? All right, so before we get to like why did blank want this movie, want to thank one of our sponsors today, Helix Sleep. If watching scary movies is keeping you up late at night, you're gonna need the best mattress you can to fall asleep fast. And I'm telling you, you gotta fall asleep fast because you can't afford to get scared. I've been using a Helix mattress for years and it's the best. Helix's sleep quiz makes finding your perfect mattress so easy. I wanted a medium firm mattress with lumbar support. The sleep's cool and I got matched with the Dusk Luxe Helix mattress. I've had it for years now and it's fantastic. I really do enjoy it and I do really enjoy their weighted blanket. I'm mad at my past self who didn't have Helix. Helix offers.
Forgive yourself.
Yeah, that's part of the theme. Helix offers 20 unique mattresses, including the award-winning Luxe and Ultra Premium Elite collections, Helix Plus for big and tall sleepers, and the Helix Kids mattress. Helix delivers your mattress right to your door with free shipping in the U.S. It comes rolled up in a box and is super easy to set up yourself. Helix has a 100-night sleep trial, so you can get more than 3 months to make sure that you love your mattress, and their mattress has a 10-year warranty. Pile that on top of their financing options and flexible payment plans, a great night's sleep is never far away. It's scary how good Helix mattresses are. Click the link in the description below to find out for yourself and get 20% off. And of course, check out nerdride.shop to support all 3 channels in the new Rockstars network. Eric Scott, new mask, same task. Hell yeah. Whoa. What a shirt. Brand's got a classic villain Supreme shirt.
Let him know.
Let him know indeed. So yeah, check out nerdriot.shop. Thank you all so much. All right, so why did Warner Brothers want to make this film?
Because Joker made $1 billion.
Yep. And several Oscars.
Yeah.
One for Best Actor, one for Best Score. I think some others that I'm forgetting. And Golden Globes as well. I think this Hollywood Reporter article that we showed you earlier goes into kind of the reasons why. They kind of recognized in 2021 that like the whole industry would have laughed them out of town if they didn't follow up this movie with a sequel.
Yeah. It's the same reason they made Aquaman 2, right? $1 billion movie.
And this is my whole thing. Like, I think Hollywood has learned too many lessons from $1 billion movies that came out between 2017 and 2019. A lot of mediocre movies. And I'm not saying Joker was one of those mediocre movies, but it's not the kind of movie that's going to have $1 billion sequel. The way it ends is in kind of this like nebulous kind of thought experiment of what if this was all in Joker's head. So like, do we need to rehash all those events in a trial? Is that another $1 billion movie? I think this industry is so young that the most successful people in Hollywood have defied the conventional thinking. And I don't know why Hollywood keeps getting stuck in these ruts of like, well, we have to do it. Just everyone who is the most successful filmmaker, studio in Hollywood have bucked the trend, have said, no, it would make sense maybe to do a sequel, but instead we're going to do this weird thing. We're going to use the money we made from this to fund Batgirl and actually put that out in theaters or on streaming, you know?
Gosh,
Like they're like, no, it must have a sequel. We must make more Oscars from it. And I think like not just, and Warner's not alone here.
Yeah.
I think Disney did the same thing. Right. Aladdin made $1 billion. Lion King made $1 billion. Captain Marvel made $1 billion. And we're gonna get Mufasa this year. Yeah. We already saw what happened with the Marvels. Like these movies don't always need sequels. I'm not saying the Marvels should not have been made, because I think Iman Vellani is a star and she needs to be on the big screen. I get that. It's just that movie as a Captain Marvel sequel, I don't know if that was the best version of that idea.
Yeah, it isn't always so plug and play, right? That like 2 equals 1 billion more. Right. Like, I do like the quote that they would be fools to turn down a sequel, right? Especially we have here they're under orders by Zaslav to fill a bare cupboard after the studio's Project Popcorn disaster, which alienated talent by sending its entire 2021 slate the day and date to streaming service Max. Yeah, I do think that's interesting, right? Like they probably wanted to keep the things that they wanted to have. They're like, what did well? We got to keep it around. And the Hollywood Reporter article also notes that no one would have turned down what they think would be a guaranteed hit again.
Yeah.
But you can't just it's so transparent to be like, yeah, that did well, so we just got to do it one more time, right?
I think that decision by Warner Discovery to put their 2021 releases, I know I'm not the first one to say this, Christopher Nolan publicly separated from the studio over this one issue, might go down as one of the worst decisions in all of this industry's history. Obviously it was the end decision after all the studios decided to cower to the fear of Netflix and Silicon Valley to shift their entire business models into streaming. But during COVID, for Warner to get so scared by the streaming wars to dump all of these great movies that could have made $500 million each, from Dune Part 1 to Mortal Kombat to Godzilla vs. Kong to Matrix Resurrections. And not all these movies were good. Matrix Resurrections, particularly not so, but could have made a couple $100 million. Wonder Woman 1984, not a good movie, but could have made a couple $100 million, made some money back on that investment. And whatever streaming subscriptions they got out of that for those first year, all those people cut that cords the next year.
100%. It's every time there's a new movie out on a streaming service, you think the calculation has to be how many subscriptions can we get to sign up for this? And it's never gonna be more than a third of that budget. There's no way it's gonna be that.
Warner Brothers would be sitting on the Best Picture Oscar winner, because Nolan would have made Oppenheimer with Warner Brothers. Now they made Barbie, and Barbie was a great film. But I think Barbie is a good example of Greta Gerwig is the kind of director who should be getting a blank check for her sequels.
That's a good
Jordan
musical.
Peele, John Chu.
Musical.
John Chu makes great musicals. Wicked is going to make so much money for Universal. Crazy Rich Asians, an amazing film. In the Heights, an amazing film. Obviously, I had some issues with it, but I thought it was a really well-directed film. To look at Todd Phillips, the director of the Hangover films, successful films. I'll give him that. To just give him the kind of treatment that you give to only rare situations like Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino. And to assume that Todd Phillips is in that category, I think was just such a mistake. And we haven't talked about that yet, but that article just talks about how this movie got director's cut. It got no test screenings at all. They just let it go out unencumbered, and I think that was definitely a mistake.
I don't know the timeline of when everything got the green light and was moving, but I bet some of the calculation was, we're switching over DC studios from previous ownership to new management, right? And we're going to have 2 to 3 years where there's no new DC Studios films, from whenever Aquaman 2 comes out until we can get you can count Creature Commandos, but that's going to be on the streaming service. Till we get Superman,
something in theaters.
We're not going to have a DC thing in theaters. Todd wants to do Joker 2. Let him. You know what I mean? Let's at least have that out there, because Matt Reeves needs 2 more years to do the next Batman.
And they're probably it looks like it works. We didn't need Batman. We only had a few references to Thomas Wayne.
Do you think Zaslav was like, can we have Batman in this one? Can Batman get a song?
I think there was something about that.
And Todd's going to be like, Batman's 7 right now. We established that in the first movie.
And he's grieving.
Yeah. I wish that Mom and Dad were here, but now they're dead. I'm left alone.
See, that would work, Brandon, because that's called an original song.
Yeah.
What this movie would do was just have him sing the song from Oliver.
Let's talk about it.
No. Is love?
Well, some of the songs from this were from movie musicals.
Most of them
That's
were.
Entertainment was.
Uh-huh.
But not all of them were.
Only one wasn't.
Okay. But
And it was the best song in it. It was Gaga's Folie A Deux, the waltz on the hotel Arkham rooftop.
Yeah.
Everything else was from a classic Hollywood film or a Broadway show.
Right.
And I love show tune karaoke.
Yes.
What I don't love is when the fourth person comes up to sing Funny Girls, Don't Rain on My Parade.
Oh, yeah.
This movie had endless reprisals
of
the same songs. And it's like, you can pick one song to reprise over and over again.
But don't
Hamilton brings back elements of My Shot throughout. And that's a common thing. But to do it with 4 different songs that kind of have different thematic connections, it's like you don't really know what you're trying to take away from the evolution of these characters.
And in a traditional musical, like, this is kind of, I guess you could call it a jukebox musical, because it's taking songs that weren't written for the show and kind of like fitting it in. And I always hate that, because it never really cleanly works.
Unless it's Mamma Mia. Unless it's Mamma Mia. Unless it's come on, guys.
Because a really good musical. Well, I don't even like that how it works in Mamma Mia, because they're ABBA songs. Because like a regular song that you're just writing tells its story in itself, right? It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's its own little self-contained thing that you can appreciate on its own, whatever. A good musical has some songs in it that only really work in the context of the musical, and they're telling you how the character feels right then in that moment, expressing it. And maybe it's not a banger you sing at home because it doesn't go verse, chorus, verse, chorus. Maybe it doesn't even have a chorus. Maybe it's just several verses, but it's fun, and it tells a little part of the story. This movie has none of that.
Yeah.
And it's just like they're fitting these songs in where they don't necessarily fit. It's like I'm watching Jagged Little Pill or something like that. And they're stretching to make this work. And it's not working for me. It's not working for me.
Like, I'll give you Moving Out, Jersey Boys. Everyone loves Jersey Boys.
Yeah.
I wasn't crazy about Jersey Boys.
Again, it's a jukebox musical. I'm not
And
crazy.
jukebox musicals use one artist's work.
Usually.
Yeah, not
Rock of Ages uses multiple.
You're right.
Not Back to the 80s, the totally jukebox musical.
What? Evan, you were in Back to the 80s, the totally jukebox musical?
I was.
Who were you? Jim 80s?
Featured singer number 2.
Singer number 2.
Okay.
No small parts, Evan.
And no small parts. Before we talk about Todd Phillips, I did want to ask this question from I'm Iron Man 10. Do you think they will try other villain movies or just none after this? I think this is a really interesting question as far as, like, you know, what lessons will Warner Brothers learn from this? Obviously, you know, they've already learned the wrong lessons from 2019, right? Are they going to say we can't do a solo villain movie? Does that mean, like, this Deathstroke Bane movie is going to be, like, not happening? They're like, well, Joker did terrible. We can't do that.
I think Deathstroke Bane can work for the same reasons Hobbs and Shaw worked.
Yes.
Yeah.
In 20,
sure.
that was also 2019.
2019?
Another movie that almost made
Almost
$1 billion.
$1 billion.
It's one of the more profitable entries of the Fast saga. I think a good buddy comedy where they're both imperfect characters, Lethal Weapon, like that.
Yeah.
That formula works. I get that. I think Penguin is working right now. But as like a series, as like a Sopranos style series, it's working. I don't know if like every villain needs their own movie in the way that Sony has decided every Spider-Man villain needs their own movie.
Yeah, and part of that has to come from rights, right? Just to like keep up appearances.
I think
literally.
villain movies are tough because like a movie is like its own little thing, and no one wants to leave the theater being like, wow, the piece of shit won the day.
Yeah.
I'm bummed out, and that was tough to watch that protagonist of this movie kill somebody.
I mean, $1 billion worth of people did it the first
Oh,
time.
yeah. But I mean, like, they're trying to justify it.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of people didn't enjoy that experience.
Yeah.
I think like the Penguin TV show works, right? Because like they're keeping him a bad dude, and that show can end. A show can end with the bad dude still being a bad dude.
Yeah.
And you move on with it. You know what I mean? Like you get along with your life just fine. I think it's really tough to do like a villain movie where they are the capital V villain and they win the day, but that means that the hero loses.
Right. You can impart, like, a good movie needs to impart some important life lesson, whether it's like showing like a struggling hero fighting the odds and overcoming those odds, and like his virtue is kind of like a life lesson that we can aspire towards. Unless it's a cautionary tale, unless it's like a character study in the way of a lot of Martin Scorsese's movies have been, where it's like, ooh, this is a bad guy, and you're gonna watch him suffer because of these, like, he's gonna follow this thread of this seemingly innocuous, sinful behavior and just get worse and worse and worse, and then he's gonna suffer. And that's why when you live your life, don't follow this guy's path. These Joker movies don't clearly do that. They don't say that Arthur Fleck is like a bad guy. They still say at the end of the movie he is a victim of a social social net that collapsed and failed him.
Yeah, I mean that's why it's interesting to draw so many comparisons from the first Joker movie to Scorsese's films, right? We were talking earlier, like Taxi Driver, like King of Comedy. But the way it's being presented is a little just off. That's a little different. Yeah.
I think Taxi Driver doesn't leave you thinking that Travis Bickle is a possibly good guy.
Right.
I think Goodfellas ends with Ray Liotta looking at the camera and saying, now I gotta get spaghetti noodles and ketchup, like a schnook or whatever. And then smash the credits, and you see all the other criminal sentences of all these other guys that you liked. It scares you. The third act of Goodfellas scares you, where he's like, Karen, go a little bit further, and you hear guys whispering. It's a scary world. The final season of Sopranos is scary.
The sauce.
I'm stirring it.
All the sauce stresses me out.
Yeah. So I think Scorsese understands that. I would even say, like, how would you feel about Tarantino movies? Because, like, in some ways, his movies are a vindication of the virtuous, but some of his movies are, like, bad people doing bad things. And, like, Pulp Fiction is an example of they're not good guys.
Yeah.
Right.
And they suffer, but at the end of the day, I guess we know through the inverted chronology what happens to Travolta.
Travolta, he pays, he dies.
But Jules is able to kind of have a change of heart, so I guess he finally makes a virtuous decision, so he's able to get out of it.
And also the journey is fun.
Yeah.
Right? It's different than both of these movies.
In the bar, let's talk. This is now Pulp Fiction.
Yes.
All right, hey, welcome back to Pulp Fiction Potting.
None of you motherfuckers move, you hear me? I'll blast every last one of you motherfuckers in here. I forget the line exactly. Baby, what does he call her? Baby Honey Bun?
Honey
Bun?
Yeah.
But in that moment, Jules decides to like intervene and save these people.
Yes.
And that redeems all evil deeds he ever did in his whole life.
Or will do in the future. Because this seems like one exception he made, and in the future he's going to kill more people. He doesn't care.
Well, we don't know. This is a Minority Report.
He did say he's done.
We can't pre-crime the guy, okay? We don't know what he's going to do in the future.
Unless Tarantino's final movie, The Movie Critic, catches up with Jules' future.
Yeah. And he's the movie critic.
Yeah.
He's like, this movie was worse than the time that I put someone's teeth on the curb and cracked the back of their skull open. 2 thumbs down.
2 thumbs down.
This has been Jules' bad motherfucking movie reviews.
I would love that. I would watch.
Speaking of something getting bad reviews, Todd Phillips. Why do we think Todd Phillips wanted to make Joker 2? Per this Hollywood Reporter article, the idea for the sequel came to Joaquin Phoenix in a dream. He and Phillips brought the idea to Emmerich. Also, Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix both allegedly got paid $20 million for the movie.
So there's your reason, Fishbowl.
Bad.
Lady Gaga made like $12 million.
12 million, yeah.
And good for her.
Signed on right before the script was finished.
I mean, I didn't see Joaquin didn't have a writing credit or anything for the movie. I didn't think he had a story credit either. Which, if it's his dream, let's get him some credits, guys.
I have to imagine that when you're someone like Todd Phillips, he probably really enjoyed working with an artist like Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
And he was also a producer on A Star is Born, and I think he really respects Lady Gaga as a talent and probably wants to work with her in some other capacity. I think when you're a director like him, you just want to see interesting projects get made. Yeah. And like, if you're going to spend a couple years of your life working on something, it's like, okay, do I want to work with these artists? Is there more to explore in this world? And I think he genuinely was like thrilled with the success of Joker. There might have been like some unanswered questions that he wishes that he could have answered, and he tried to answer
Sure.
them with this movie. Why he wanted to do it as this kind of musical, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've looked into his past. There's no interview where he's like, you know what, I really like the movies of Gwen Verdon and Fred Astaire and Bob Fosse. Like, I'm sure he did grow up watching those. I'm sure he, like many of us, loves the 2002 film Chicago. But if he's trying to do Chicago or Cabaret with this movie, I don't know if he saw the same Chicago that I saw.
Yeah.
I think he gets what the movie is, and he gets like the kind of cynical commentary on the way media can influence the outcomes of trials that Chicago is all about. But I think technically the way Chicago was edited, and it also won an Oscar for editing, was in that Fosse style. And Fosse changed the game of film editing, especially with musicals, of quick cuts, of just like random inserts of just like reactions and just like laboring over the cuts. And Todd Phillips is not that kind of director. He likes to set up the camera, roll it for a long time. There's a lot of long takes in this movie. And I think that's great, but that's not the kind of musical Chicago is. Chicago does cool lighting shifts, practical set transitions,
and like more
and
dancers.
And more dancing,
singers.
Impressive choreography on that.
Because they show Joaquin like doing a little tap dancing. And even that was shot not as engaging as I think it could have been. You know, he was just kind of like moving the camera around, letting it happen. But I was like, I would like to see more done with these like sets. You know, they had that big studio set they built with like the white road up to the chapel, and it was like just so empty and bare, and like, you know, again, like use the variety show as the whole device for the whole thing, the whole effing thing.
Yeah.
Like, let's have some fun.
I think if you're gonna do a Spielberg is the example that I go to. Spielberg, for most of his career, was not known as a guy who loved musicals, but he did. Anytime in interviews, he would talk about musicals that he would grow up going to watch.
Hook was supposed to be a musical.
Hook was going to be a musical. The opening
There's one song left in the movie, the one the little girl sings.
Yeah. When you're alone. Yes. The opening to Temple of Doom is a cover of Anything Goes.
So good.
The best Cole Porter show tune that Sutton Foster just reinvigorated.
Tore it up.
Yes, so good. Jonathan Groff did like a tribute to her, the miscast. He mirrored her choreography in a brilliant performance. But Anything Goes is one of the best ones, and she did it in Mandarin. And it's like, hell yes, what a weird way to open an Indiana Jones movie. But Spielberg wanted to do it to show. He's like, one day I'm going to be able to do a musical, and I want to show that I can do this. And then he makes West Side Story in 2021, which, you know, didn't take over Hollywood in the way that it should have, but that movie was really good.
Yeah, it's just
Was
really good
good.
filmmaking.
That was another day and date. Was that a Warner Brothers?
No,
I don't know.
I think so.
Who
It was
produced
on
that?
Max pretty quickly, but I don't know.
No, I remember seeing it in theaters.
I know it was in theaters.
It just
Yeah,
underperformed.
But that movie was great.
It was really good. So I think
Gorgeous.
there are
was
plenty of
Disney.
directors who were
Disney in
bit
2021.
by that Broadway bug, and I don't know if Todd Phillips was. Maybe he was. Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I just think there are a lot of directors who, between Greta Gerwig and John Chu, who understand how musicals need to look on screen. Like the musical sequences in Barbie were incredible,
So good.
and like that's why I think even the director of Birds of Prey, the Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, was one of the best sequences in that film. I'm craving a good musical on a film, and I think audiences, even if they say they don't like musicals, when they see one, they will love it.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's something that this movie could have benefited from from test screenings, right? From people who actually like love musicals and been like, could you do more of that? Could you do a little bit more of that? You know, like you said, Todd Phillips kind of got a blank check for this. He had, quote, an extraordinary level of autonomy and final cut. There were no test screenings. He just, he just went for it. And, it's probably fitting that Francis Ford Coppola, who put out Megalopolis, was a fan of this movie, or is at least praising Todd Phillips, because both of them, similarly got to like make the movie that they wanted to make, or according to them, this is what, how they wanted to, what they wanted to put out in the world. I think it's a very, like you said, a very specific scenario, right, where a director gets that amount of control.
And I would say someone like Coppola deserves Final Cut just based off of what he's made and how important those movies have been to Hollywood.
Yeah.
He self-funded this movie. He didn't, like, no studio really funded it. He did partner with Lionsgate to distribute it. So I honestly don't care if a director like misuses the studio's money. It's more of the studio's fault there. I know there's a lot of people who are like, this show or this movie costs this much, and I kind of feel like if you're a director and artist and you're able to get that funding, it's kind of like, good for you.
Yeah.
Because they're going to spend that money on other stupid shit instead. Like, get them to fund your project. Get your money. Go for it. Do it. Now, there's plenty of arguments of pay equity. And I think there are arguments to be had, like, should Lady Gaga have also been paid $20 million? Obviously, there's a lot of arguments of Robert Downey Jr. getting paid around $100 million for what might be just 3 movies. But then we're just talking about capitalism and pay equity. It's a different argument. I think when it comes to Final Cut, I made my point about Todd Phillips. I just think, like, the argument, I think the Hollywood Reporter correctly points out that they were saying that they didn't want to put this movie through test screenings because they wanted to avoid spoilers, which is an insane argument because Avengers Endgame was full of potential spoilers. They did put that through test screenings. Nothing leaked from Avengers Endgame. And this movie, what's going to leak? That he dies in the end?
That there's a Harvey Dent.
Yes, especially if you shoot 3 different endings, which they did for this movie. Show different endings to different audiences, and then if it leaks, there's lots of different stories out there. No one buys it.
Yeah. Well, as we kind of wrap up, why would Lady Gaga want to do this movie? Obviously $12 million, not 20, but doesn't hurt. And also, she gets to work with like Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix. I like this question from Sarah Hatchadorian. Would having someone else as Harley change anything for you? I don't think. I think she did a great job.
Yeah, I thought she was awesome.
For given, especially with what the script was giving her. She's obviously bringing a lot more musical talent to this than other people in the film. So
there's, I don't think there's that much Harley in the movie. And unfortunately, like there's maybe one scene that we see with her that's not with him. But she's just at her apartment listening to the tape.
And she talks to Catherine Keener once.
Oh yeah, we do see her talk to Catherine Keener once. And like that exchange is very fun.
Was that a Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert?
I don't know.
Did it kind of feel like
did a little bit.
The press conference kind of like squabble?
Oh my god!
I put that in the breakdown. I'm like, God, no, they're gonna yell at me if I say that. Now I say it live.
Live.
But I really did kind of feel like that was there.
I just wanted more Harley, and I almost wanted the Harley to surpass him and use him and say bye, and like you can have that same ending if the movie is more about like Harley taking over and being like, this numbnuts didn't know what he wanted to do, but I know what I want to do. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
she was great in the role.
I was trying to imagine what is a good version of like a musical, because I think Lady Gaga is so good. I say pay her $25 million and have her write 5 or 6 more songs, and those are the only songs in the movie, and it's a true kind of like musical in the way that Star is Born had like multiple original songs in it.
Well, I mean, off that, do you think that Dev in the Water asked, do you think we get a Harley Gaga solo movie?
I think this movie should have been that. Now, I don't think we do.
Yeah.
I want to see Lady Gaga do anything else with her career. I think this movie could have been the story of someone who falls in love with a serial killer and is visiting someone while they're in prison for trial, and even like has themselves voluntarily committed at this place. Like, it could have been fully her story, and I know you want Joaquin Phoenix to come back, but maybe you just see him through like archive footage, and it's all just her perspective of the events.
And her perception of him too, right? Like playing with that, like and what the movie already does too. Like, how does she view this person as a figure in her life?
I think that, at least as a film, would be a bit more coherent. The issue is like, from a Warner Brothers perspective, how do you say yes to that when you already have Margot Robbie killing it as Harley Quinn in these movies? Like, she's been one of the best casting choices they've ever made. So it's just kind of weird to say yes to another Harley movie when we've already kind of had
a bunch of Batmans going at once.
Yeah, that's true.
A bunch of Batmans.
That is true.
Yeah. So just kind of as we wrap up here, some final audience questions. Sarah Hatchadorian asking, with so much being in Arthur's head, did you doubt for any moment that the explosion was real?
Oh.
I thought maybe for a second. I was like, maybe it's fake. Just for a second. But then quickly I was like, no, this part's real.
Yeah. I mean, I doubted the Lady Gaga visiting him in his solitary confinement.
Yeah.
I obviously didn't think the baby was ever real. That was weird and strange. No, I thought the explosion was real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at that point,
I would have liked the mystery of there never was an attorney or something like that.
Sure,
that would have been fun.
Because at that point in the movie, so much of what's real, what's not, is just converged and to be, because he's like, oh, I've accepted.
It would have been fun from a kind of, you mentioned Shutter Island earlier. If we did kind of doubt Harley the whole time, we're like, is Harley real? I don't know.
Yeah, she's just like a bird in his head or something.
Also, Lee
why do birds suddenly appear?
Lee?
Yeah, I think the I never doubted the realness of the explosion. I will say that at the end of the movie, the fact that Arthur's being led to have a visitor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, is this kind of a reset of the movie and everything that we just saw? His whole trial was in his head. But then upon second watching, I was like, oh, actually, that's probably Brendan Gleeson as like
they were just
Clancy
setting him
Brown's
up.
priser character who's just setting up this guy
They were just setting him
to
up.
get shit.
There never was a visitor, Evan.
I thought it was Thomas Wayne. He said, I'm your father.
Hey, I just want to say sorry.
It's little Bruce. He's like, hi,
I thought they got killed. Did they get killed in the first movie?
He did.
He did, yeah.
It's
the
ghost.
The ghost of
ghost.
Thomas Wayne. He's a Force ghost. He says,
It's
Arthur,
me,
I am
Thomas
your father.
Wayne, and I'm back from the dead. Gee, hell is hot. I wish I was here instead. I just wanted to say that I was your dad. Sorry that your other dad treated you bad. Oh, it's me, Thomas Wayne Sr.
This is great.
That's good.
I'm vibing to this.
Yeah.
Get this guy in a room full of
do it.
musicians.
Yes.
Get this guy in front of a crowd.
If you don't know already, back 1989, Tim Burton's Batman, very popular. They wanted to mount a stage Broadway show based on Batman at the time, early 90s. They're ready to do it. They go so far as they get a guy, I forget his name, apologies to this gentleman, to write songs for the show. You can find out there.
Oh, that's right.
Some
Yeah,
of
yeah,
his
yeah.
recordings that he recorded on his own piano at home, singing the songs. His song for the Joker was so good.
Oh,
and it's like
yes.
fun, ragtime, like, and it literally has like, where does he get all these wonderful toys?
toys.
It's incredible. Just make that movie. There's also a great little. There's a great musical production group called Team Star Kid. They make
From Michigan, yeah.
They make a lot of musicals. They did the like Harry Potter musicals.
Yes, yeah.
They did like a
Darren
holy.
Criss.
They did a holy musical Batman that is so good and so funny. And this came out before the Lego Batman movie, and the Lego Batman movie like stole this whole story. It's like you'll watch this and you'll be like, this is like the Lego Batman movie.
Interesting.
It's really good, and they wrote all these original songs for it. They made an original character for it, like an original villain. It's very fun and like just make that. Please.
Yeah. Star Kid
Please.
shout out. When Kelly and I first started dating, we would just text each other, I don't really want to do the work today.
I don't want to
do the work today. I don't really want to do the work today. I don't want to do the work today.
Team Star Kid. Way to
Check
go.
them out.
They're great.
Yeah. All right. Some final questions here. Spidey Sensei asking, you guys work in the industry. Do actors take it personally when their projects bomb? I mean,
And probably not personally.
No.
Because especially if the reviews are kind to them.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
that Gaga or
Also, like,
Phoenix
especially an
did that.
actor, you know, they've done their part. They've showed up. They did what the director asked them to do. They put their heart and soul into it. You know, no one wants to get negative reviews, certainly, but like, yeah, I hope they don't take it personally.
And I don't
And
think
no one, and again, like, movies are very hard to make, very hard to get off the ground, very hard to get produced. And like, no one is setting out to make a bad movie. Everyone is really trying, and it's hard to do.
it is, yeah.
The alchemy of like making a good movie is really tough.
For any movie to get completed and to get distributed is in itself a miracle.
Yeah.
I think that's our opinion as people who work in the industry. It's so hard to just get anything made and anything funded and anything distributed, even if you're Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix. So I think the two of them, their careers are not going to be hurt by this.
No.
I think they'll be able to get paid pretty well on whatever their next project is.
oh, definitely.
And a lot of negative things that you might find about a movie or a TV show or something, that might not even be like the artist behind it, right? That could be executives making decisions. That could be all sorts of things going on. So
Yeah. The more unfortunate story is what is happening in this industry with streaming and how projects are just being produced and then just gutted and destroyed and erased for tax write-offs.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for those actors
Yeah.
who would have had a chance to be discovered. I feel bad the fact that like the Marvels had to just come out during a strike and then Iman Vellani didn't have a chance to do a press tour.
for it.
And just think like what is happening with Joe Locke right now and how people are discovering Joe Locke and just how wonderful he is. Like, Iman Vellani deserved that. And she got that through Ms. Marvel, I guess. But, like, she should have been on a press tour for the Marvels.
Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah, it would have been great. Would have been really fun to see. All right, final question here. Of course, shout out to the early crew: Ryan Painter, Kobe-Wan Kenobi, Savvy389, Sarah Hatchadorian, and Twitch, always chatting along. Give them if you ever want to tune into the stream a little early, go to the Twitch page and go to the chat because there's always someone chatting there an hour beforehand. Final question that we like to ask. This movie, a lot of things going on, a lot of ideas, just so much happening.
Sure.
Ryan Painter asks, how fleshy is this film? I would say this film, it's a well done steak. It's a well done steak. It's
not a good steak.
It's a big steak. It's a big cut. There's so much meat, but it just tastes bad. You can eat it. You can eat it.
This movie is like fully clothed. You're not seeing much flesh. You know what I mean? It could use a little more razzle dazzle. You know, I could stand to see a little more skin in this movie. I just mean that in like, it needs to be a little sexier, a little more fun, a little more musical. You know,
we got Joaquin Butt in this movie.
I know.
We got Butt. I hear what you're saying, though. I think it was pretty fleshy in the way that when you go to a restaurant and they put on today's specials and it's like, oh, it's really great. It's some kind of like beef short rib. And then you get it and realize it was like yesterday's pot roast. And so there's a lot of different meats and ingredients on the plate, but it's just kind of like not coming together. And it's just a little too bland.
Yeah.
And doesn't have a good chew to it.
Oh, yeah. That's sometimes meat's too chewy, man. I'll just say it. Makes me want to go vegetarian. Hey, that's it for us today. Make sure to subscribe to the Breakroom channel on YouTube and give us a follow on Twitch where we do videos like this live. We're talking tomorrow, Halloween films, horror films. Come back for that. Ooh. And, the after show live on Twitch and YouTube for Agatha Episode 5. What's going to happen?
What's going to happen?
What's going to happen?
Down the Witch's Road. And not brown.
The bridges low.
There we go. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.